Sometimes I felt like it's easy to really spread yourself too thin, or at least in my um, experiences, like it's like so easy to like be like everywhere and then feel, at least for me, I feel guilty really quickly, and feel
Mm,
like I'm not giving what I want to give to everything
mm,
in the way that I want to give, if that makes sense. Focus on what you need and don't try, at least try not to feel guilty about it. Like, nobody is gonna look out for you as much as you're gonna look out for yourself, right? So you need to
absolutely.
really handle that. Um, and also like look for the mentors. I want to like really put that out there, because
Yes.
they're so helpful, and it's really going to be like, I think some of the mentors are what can help you connect to what you are potentially looking for.
Turn this up, turn this up.
Your professional development is one of the keys to your career success. When you combine your desire to grow with actionable steps, your journey to success becomes an incredible reality.
Hi, I'm Paul Faronbi, and welcome to IncrediPaul Leadership, where we learn how to become the most incredible versions of ourselves by learning from each other. Today, I have the honor of having Dr. Lizeth Tamayo on the show. She has earned her, I can't talk. Lizeth Tamayo earned her PhD in genetic epidemiology from the University of Chicago, which focus on interplay between genetic and environmental factors and their impact on complex disease risk in low resource and understudied populations. That was a whole lot there. I'm sure we're going to get into it, but I know it's really exciting work. Right now, she's a computational biologist at Tempest Labs and leverages her diverse educational background to decipher insights from extensive genomic, cancer, and clinical data sets. So that's just a little bit about you and really more so on your kind of career path. But yeah, just introduce yourself the way you would do it.
Yeah, thank you so much, Paul. It's always such a nice introduction. Yeah, my name is Lizeth Tamayo. Recently obtained my PhD in genetic epidemiology, and now working within industry. So I think one of the things that um, I think I really love in terms of like describing myself is I love research, and I am a big proponent of like science and getting anybody who's interested or thinks they're interested in research getting on board. And I think that's one of the ways that Paul and I met, and a big proponent of everything that that he is and I have been very interested in doing is getting as many people from keep falling from
No, you're good. The earphones don't
underserved
want to stay
populations as possible, um, within research, be it like in any aspect of that. I think, in terms of like the breadth of what research is, or just in terms of like understanding if anybody is interested, or just starting to like dip their toes, at whatever stage in their career that they are. So yeah, I think right. Yeah, I think that's one way to introduce myself.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's really cool. You let the cat out of the bag early that we've known each other for a while, which is, and I think I probably put us both on the spot, like when we were at the conference last month when I said, I can't remember how long I said it was like 8 years or something. It's been a minute.
It has been. It's
So
been a while.
yeah, I've known each other a while, and like all the stuff we've done for underserved, underrepresented populations, and primarily in STEM. Like I know that's something we're both really passionate about. But I also want to hear a little bit more about, because I know you say you love research. I know we both love research, but I'm interested about like how you got into research, even to know that you loved it.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, especially I think it varies by where your background is, because I think for me, being an immigrant, so I think I also sort of feel like I am the worst storyteller because my brain goes like all over the place. But I am, an immigrant. I came to the United States when I was 4 from Peru, And so I think very early on, I was very focused in terms of like going into college, right? That was like always the mindset with my parents. And
Mhm.
because I was relatively good at like STEM things like math, science, it was like, you're going to be a doctor. And that makes sense, right? When you're in like middle school, high school, and you have like relatively limited knowledge of the careers that are out there, you're like, science, math, doctor, obviously.
Right.
I was very much thanks to the opportunities that we had through like um, through NALA that we were able to in like different like organizations that opened up my opportunities within the research world and mentoring. I think once I was an
Mm.
undergrad, so I think it was meeting people who even just helped me understand what a PhD was, and that wasn't just like people who were teaching us, right? Like there's like so much
Mhm.
more that people are doing in terms like on the side. I think at the beginning for me my freshman year, I was like PhDs. Everybody was a PhD, right? But like it was like very
Uh,
confusing for me to understand like
mm,
what else do they do, and especially
yeah.
within like research. And so it was like really important for me to get some of that mentorship to be like, if you were to go into like research and get your PhD, you can do X and have like that very much broken down in such a
Mm,
like like nothing, because I did, like I knew nothing at that stage.
yeah.
um but I think sometimes very much when you're an undergrad, people assume that you know so much of the language of like everything that's going on.
Are you looking for a place to continue to grow and develop, especially in your leadership? How about connecting with others who feel the same way? Hi, I'm Paul Faronbi, aka IncrediPaul, and I've got great news for you. The IncrediPaul community is for people who desire to become the most incredible versions of themselves. The community is for individuals who are goal driven and action oriented. This community is dedicated to leadership and personal growth, especially in going deeper in your career, starting a business, or developing a business. Join me in becoming the most incredible version of yourself. Go to incredipaul.org/community to join the waitlist and sign up. INCREDI Paul.org/community. Join the waitlist. I can't wait to see you there.
And it's very, very helpful when people just sort of like tell you it like piece by piece and make it very digestible. And I think
Mm-hmm.
undergrad freshman year me would be so shocked at like what I'm doing now, because I don't think I would have even known that what I'm doing now is a possibility.
Wow.
Yeah.
And it's so key that you said that because I know coming in as a freshman, I thought I had to have everything figured out. But even looking back, that like as you as a freshman versus you now, like you did not even realize this was a possibility and you're doing it. And so I think that's a key thing, like for people listening to, or watching on the podcast, if you're just listening, you can watch on YouTube as well, is that you don't always know what you like until you see it. And sometimes like what you want to do might not even exist
Mm,
yet. Like
yeah.
technology and stuff is like, advancing so
Yeah.
quickly. Like I think that's a good point what you said. Like from undergrad you to right now, like from getting your PhD to now working in industry, it's like totally different.
Yeah. I think, and you make such a good point in talking about everything that like the careers that we currently have now might change in terms of like the surface of what we call them, or some of like the skill sets that we're looking for in the future, especially when we talk about like things like AI and things like that,
Oh
right? Like they're going to change, and I think sometimes it's normal to feel sort of intimidated, right? Because it's like,
yeah.
what is going to happen? As a society, we have it's normal for us to fear all the new that's coming, but sometimes I like to think about like for our generation, Google was relatively new, right? When we were like up and coming. So
Oh
like
yeah.
we came up and started to use that, and I feel like one of the things that's interesting is for a bit there was like very interesting that our generation was very good at using Google in the workplace. Find some of the
Yeah.
workplace finds that like as an asset, right? And like the next generation's just going to get very good at figuring out how to use AI, even if it's just things like knowing how to like ask questions to ChatGPT, even if they're not the ones working behind it, right? And like doing some of the modeling or doing some of the coding behind it. I think it's just going to be
Yeah.
a really cool way to see how it just changes the future. I think it's really exciting. I'm pretty excited for it.
Yeah. It is really exciting, and thanks for telling everyone that we're old because we were before Google. Uh,
I mean, at the time it was starting, right?
no, you're right because I'm pretty sure Google was like in 2000 or 99. I forgot when it was, but it was definitely after we were born. Yes, but
It's
no,
wild to
it's
think about.
funny. Yeah, it's funny because like what we see right now, like we have no idea what the next Google or ChatGPT is
Right.
going to be, and like between Google and ChatGPT, like there's like only like a 20-year gap. Like it's maybe a little bit more than that, but it's great. Less than 30 years for sure. Like a generation, really.
Yeah. No. Yeah. So who knows what's going to happen? But yeah, and then that's just going to open more research fields or STEM fields, and who knows? So like, the generation coming up who thinks of like those like relatively like four fields that's like physician, engineer, teacher type of thing. Like they're
Mhm.
once they get to college, their minds are just gonna have like so many, like they're gonna be blown with all of the options.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I know right now, I don't know if you see this, like the top job that like young people coming up, like people in elementary school want to be is like not even in tech or anything. It's like an influencer, like a YouTuber, actually.
I didn't know that. But I mean, I guess that
Yeah,
makes sense, right?
yeah. Because I mean, we've seen you. I mean, YouTube has been around for a while, but I think there's been other aspects like people getting popular off TikTok now. I know for
Mm,
us, like it was Vine back in the day. People going Vine famous for like 6-second videos. Which looking back at it, like I don't know how they were able to be that creative in that short amount of time. Like they were like telling stories. Like I don't know. I think it takes a special art, but it's really interesting to see how things have shifted because like we're definitely focused more on the STEM field, but I think on what I try to tell people is that you should focus on where your passions lie because like we had passions in STEM and I remember that we had similar stories because I also came to the United States when I was 4 as an immigrant. Like growing up, I wanted to be a doctor. And I think that's how we became friends pretty quickly because we got like similar stories around that.
yeah.
But I know some people are like, "Oh, I want to be a YouTuber, or I want to be an influencer," which I guess that's fine. But I think just because you want to pursue that doesn't mean you can't do something else as well. Because I think there's multiple layers to all of us like
Mm,
people just see, like the online version of you or the work version of you or the family side of you. But I feel like most people have like at least 3 different sides to them. Like the people that your family sees, people that work sees, and the person that you know who you really are. And sometimes you have more.
yeah, I think
It's
that
interesting.
no, that's very true. And I feel like if we're talking about multifaceted people, I feel like Paul, you're like the poster child for this.
I'm the poster child for
I
this.
mean, how many things do you work on at once? Sometimes, if you, the people who watch your podcast already know, like, I mean, you do this, you're part of, like, you created Knowledge STEM, you do everything you're doing with your career, and then you're also very family dedicated. Like, come on.
Yes, yeah, I get you're right. This podcast is not about me, but yes, you're right. I do a few different things, but I know you also do a few things as well because of those things you mentioned, you are also highly involved in Nala STEM, the creation of it. even before that, when Inspire, you were highly involved in it. Um, and there's a whole lot of other things you do, and you could, if you want to share about that.
Yeah, actually, one of the things that I've especially during the end of my grad school, I think I tried really hard to like hands off approach. And I think that was sort of like crazy because I feel like, as you know, there's like, it's so easy to take on so many projects and say yes
Mm-hmm.
to so many things. And I think towards the end of my grad school career, my PhD, I sort of took more power in saying no and being like, I don't have the bandwidth. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that was also like pretty empowering at that time. But yeah, I think there's like, because I also I think wanted to recenter myself in terms of being like, what do I really want to take um,
Mm-hmm.
with me and to, like really focus? Because I felt like it's easy to really spread yourself too thin, or at least in my um, experiences, like it's like so easy to like be like everywhere and then feel, at least for me, I feel guilty really quickly, and feel
Mm-hmm.
like I'm not giving what I want to give to everything
Mm-hmm.
in the way that I want to give, if that makes sense. And I
Yeah.
think once I started feeling that is when I decided that I was like, I really need to start saying no better because um, I want to give like a better version of myself to the things that I care
Mm-hmm.
about. But yeah, I think I love mentoring and being part of things like NALA and just giving back to the community that's like so similar to us, because I
Mm-hmm.
know that I would not be here or have accomplished so many of the things without mentoring or like the mentoring that I
Yeah.
received. So I think there's
Yeah.
just this so much gratitude that I feel, and also just like I want to give that back. And like the students that are coming up are also so amazing that like it's,
Mm-hmm.
you feel so good learning from them and meeting them, right? And I think it also like selfishly like you get re-energized.
Yeah. It's true.
Right? So like there's
Yeah.
like I guess it's always a good thing for it to be like a give and take. So I think
Yeah.
that's one of the areas that I try to like really focus on. But I think it's just like trying to collectively shift energies into like smaller pots. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and then I think just career and like family and my dog. So
Yeah.
yeah, so it's been I think so many people have like so many things going on like at all times. Um, yeah.
No, it's true. And I definitely want to highlight what you said, like really the power of saying no, because every time you don't say no to something or you're saying yes to something, you're actually saying no to something else, like
Mm-hmm.
whether or not we're like actively saying it, because we only have so much time in a day, like what we can do. And like what you were saying, as far as like giving your best version to different things, like when you spread yourself out, then you can't focus on the things that you really love and appreciate. And so that's something that I've been more intentional about doing less. It may not seem like I'm doing less because I'm still doing a lot,
Yeah.
but I'm, I'm actively doing less. And because there's so many things that I want to do, and I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that, or I'm going to do this later. I'm going to leverage someone else to do it, especially with Nala. Like, because I have a team there, I'm like, where this person can do this, and sometimes I couldn't help myself, and I'll just do it for them because I want it to get done. But
Right.
now, like really last year, like, okay, well, it's gonna get done when it gets done. I can't stress myself out about that. I need to unplug, because what I learned is that when I insert myself and do it, I'm actually taking like learning opportunities from other people. So when I don't allow them to fail, not necessarily fail, but because some people aren't as comfortable with the word failure, which I think there's no success without failure.
Mm-hmm.
But doing things that don't necessarily lead to a result that you want to, I think that's the way as you do that repetition, then you eventually find out, okay, this didn't work. This is what I should do. But if someone's always there, like telling you what to do, you don't have the opportunity to create new things.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that's totally, like, completely valid. And then I think that then so many of, like, us or the people that we interact with within NALA or just, like, I think friends, we have, like, the added layer of being minorities, right? And I think then sometimes I feel like it took me a while to, like, really, I don't know if it's, like, understand or to accept, like, the levels of, like, unpaid labor that we do that's just, like, different and like, that's so different to different people, right? I think at first I was like, no, it makes sense that they want me to do it because of X, like, of course, like, I should be the one to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But then at some point you also have to realize that, like, while it's, like, helpful, that you're doing what was asked of you, let's say, like, you're in grad school, you're doing, like, diversity projects or whatever, those projects don't necessarily always, like, make you look good in the research world, right? Because they're not interpreted in the research, like, in any of your, like, actual research. So it's just, like, added
Yeah.
work there, added that things that, while it's good, like, internally because it makes you feel good and, like, feeds you, and I think that's always very important. You also have to learn how to balance that with, like, getting ahead in your career, um, and just being able to, like, measure, like, what is, like, okay to a certain point that you do and what's just being, like, taken advantage of.
Yes. Wow, that is such a good point. And that has happened like a couple times in the last couple weeks, actually. So it's funny that you mentioned that. And so I've been more intentional about talking to the team about, like, for Nala. We keep talking, it keeps coming back to it. And I think I mentioned on the show before, but for people who don't know, NALA or NALA STEM is a National Alliance Lead Acceleration of Science, Technology, Engineering, and Math. So we've changed names a couple different times. I think we're sticking with this one because it's been over a year that we had this one. So Lizeth and I, along with our friend Natalie, who was on the podcast before, we helped start this back in 2020. And really, it was founded from a grant from the National Science Foundation, LSAMP or LSAMP, Louis Stokes Alliance for Minority Participation. I think now over 50 different alliances, universities, colleges across the nation. And so it was, like you said, we did not get any funding for this. Like, it was actually birthed from what we had done from our initial alliance based out of Iowa State, but your University Augustana was
Mm-hmm.
part of that alliance as well. That's how we met at a conference. And so I think it's really crucial because we've had conversations, several different conversations about this with Nala and, like, even with ourselves, what we're doing, what we're not doing, because us as minorities, especially in STEM, we're looked at as examples to chart the way, which is great. And we want to, and like you said, we get value from it, but it's that balance to, yes, we want to add value, but at the same time, are we getting taken advantage of because they're like, oh, you're just going to do it.
Right.
And so, yeah, it's definitely a balancing act. I don't know if I figured it out quite yet. I'm definitely more vocal about it than I was before, about being like, hey, what is your budget for this? What do you have planned? And if you don't have a budget, this is what we're willing to do. And then, like, if you absolutely need ourselves, we'll do it. Or if we already have a good relationship, we'll do it. But not just coming with this is what is expected of you. Just do it and don't ask questions.
Yeah. I feel like just from the panel that we just did, I feel like I was so impressed by you having, like, done everything for getting us funding for doing that panel. I think that was incredible, Paul. And yeah, that's from also your leadership and you pushing that. I was at a conference and I remember I heard this saying from somebody, and my first instinct when I heard this was to judge them a little bit. And now I hear back, and let me say what they said. It was like, we
Yeah.
were talking about diversity and like, yeah, diversity and like helping within diversity. And they were like, the only time I want to hear about diversity is helping diversify my portfolio type of thing. And I was like, whoa, type of thing. And they were like, we were all a group like of minorities, people of color and
Yeah.
stuff like that. But like,
Yeah.
it was like a joke, but they also like sort of like meant it. Like they were just more of like at
Mhm.
the point that they had like been fed up with some of the situations that we have sort of just touched on. And I think my first
Mhm.
instinct at that point had been felt like a little judgmental, to be honest. But now I think
Mm.
looking back at it, I'm like, it's really none of our response. Like inherently, just because we're people of color or like whatever our background is, it's not our responsibility to do this. Like if we want to, the way that you and I are choosing to, I think that's
Mhm.
great. But I think if we were to choose to like completely back out of this space and sort of take that stance and be like, I don't want to hear about this and I just want to focus on sort of, how to better myself in this other stance. I think that's
Mhm.
also completely valid. And I think that's
Yeah.
also a space that I think um, corporations, academia, like an industry also need to need to learn to value, because they also are going to eventually like sort of like start burning bridges with so many of our communities.
Yeah. That's so true. Because yeah, it can't just be an expectation, and yeah, it's great we get value from it, but you can also get burned out really easily from doing all this
Yeah.
because it transforms from being something you love to something that's an obligation, and then it's no longer fun.
Yes. Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, I think one of the things that you and I have discussed this before, sort of figuring out how to like pass on the torch type of thing,
Mm.
and how do we continue sort of like the legacy, right, of like things that we've created to continue it so that we eventually sort of have just sort of more like hands off approach, right? But I think,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's also just based on who you are, who I like, and sometimes that like approach is like sort of hard, right? Because it's like
Yeah,
what you
it's
created
very
also
hard.
feels like your baby.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. I'm glad you said that. It is very hard because, like you said, we helped create this, so you don't want to see it suffer or you don't want to see it fail. Um, this is kind of random, but it reminds me of when I helped start a student organization in college, and I was involved with it like the 2+ years I was there on research. And then like, a couple years after, I reached out to see like how they were doing and got no response. So I was like devastated because this two organization was like dead. It was gone. Like I helped create it and now it's gone. And so that can definitely happen. I think it's different with student organizations because it's like people like come and go. Like for most people, they're in college for at least undergrad, maybe 4 or 5 years. If you go masters, 6, 7, PhD, you're there longer. But I feel once you get in the PhD realm, you're not doing the same things you're doing in undergrad. So you're kind of like it's more removed. But yeah, there. So yeah, how about I talk about how do we even manage that? How do we balance between not getting too involved or too? Yeah.
Oh yeah, I think
What do you do?
I wish I knew the answer to that. I feel like for me it's been like a natural progression, only out of like
Mhm,
necessity.
mhm,
Like I feel like there was just the point, like I said, that I just literally could not do it. It was like, you know how you were like, you say no to something else? It was like I was saying no to sleep. And like,
mm,
at some point it's just not healthy. Like it really
mhm,
isn't. And I
mhm,
am not one of those people, like I don't like to promote that. Like I'm never gonna be one of those people that likes to flaunt like I only got like 3 or 4 hours of sleep, because sometimes it feels like sometimes there's that culture of being like work, like, like I worked so hard, or sometimes in the research setting, or not everywhere, but yeah, people will like, it feels like people are flaunting, like, I only slept 4 hours. I did not like that. I never liked that. Um,
Mhm.
because I think it just exacerbated the issue. Like, you made other people then feel like either they weren't doing enough, or then, it was like a domino effect that they also were then going to push like that their sleep lacked.
Yeah.
So I always try to be like, I need, well, one, sleep, because like I get headaches if like I don't, and then this is not a productive
Mhm.
time. But yeah, I think it's just one of those things where I just couldn't do enough at the quality of where I wanted to do it.
Are you wondering what's next? Has everything you tried failed? Or maybe you just feel stuck? Then coaching might be right for you. The coaching relationship is a relationship totally centered on you. If you're tired of running on the hamster wheel of life and want to start to see results, reach out to IncrediPaul for help. So what are you waiting for? Go to incredipaul.org/coaching, IncrediPaul.org/coaching, or at I am IncrediPaul on all my socials. Or you can click the link in the bio for your free coaching session. I want to make sure you become the most incredible version of yourself. The sleep thing is something that I'm newly learning to do more of. Mainly because
I'm
how some people,
nearly the operative word.
I don't know. So it's not like I don't sleep. I just
I
don't
was like,
sleep
I
as
can run on
much
2 hours.
no, I don't do that. I need at least 5. So, but it's usually, but I it's like weird for me because if I sleep too much, it's like just as bad as if I didn't sleep enough. So
Oh
it's
my
like
gosh, you sound like my
try to.
parents.
Oh, it's so funny. You keep taking shots about how old I am, but you're older than me. So just remember.
It's like by months, I think.
Yeah, literally by months. Not even. I don't think it's even half a year, but still on the calendar, you're older. But I don't even know where I was going with that. Really, with sleep. Okay, yeah, with sleep is one, but there's this whole idea like the 8 dimensions of wellness, which is a new thing, and I don't remember a lot of them. But all that to say that just because you're doing well in a couple areas doesn't mean that there's other areas that aren't suffering.
Mm,
So, like you were saying, that you could be doing really well in academia or with your grades or your projects in your social life, but you're not sleeping
yeah.
like at all, and that it starts to affect your physical health, which affects your mental
Yeah.
health, and then everything else gets affected because when your physical and mental health is affected, it just inherently affects everything. So is really being focused on like who are you holistically, and not trying to, and that's something I have to be really intentional about, not trying to put up a front or a facade to impress other people, because at the end
Mm,
of the day, you impress everyone and you are sad or you don't feel happy, like it does nothing because you made everyone else feel happy or you made everyone else excited about things,
yeah.
but then you're depressed or your mental health isn't good. So you need to make sure you can take care of yourself so you can take care of others.
Yeah. I think that's a really, really good point. Um, it's like, yeah, if you're not taking care of your mental health, then how are you going to be able to like be there? Yeah, completely agree with that.
Yes. And you heard it here. I will sleep more because Lizette told me to sleep.
I don't know how you function. I mean, like, yeah, yeah, you should probably sleep more. I feel like
I am sleeping more.
there's like so many like research papers on this.
Yes, I haven't read any of them
Let me
for the
send them to
exact.
you after this.
You can send them to me. I will not promise that I will read them.
Let me send you a
I will.
synopsis.
Yeah, send me the abstract. Oh my goodness. But to be honest, I'm way better than I was in college. It was actually a problem in
Mm.
college. I think, yeah, when I met you, I probably may have bragged about not sleeping much because I was just the person I was. I'm not that person anymore. The person I am today is just that I have stuff I need to do. And most of the time when I end up not sleeping, when I end up sleeping late, is not because I'm doing stuff that I need to do. It's because I'm just wasting time, like most of the time. So it's like, I'm like, okay, I lost sleep because I was on TikTok scrolling for the last hour or like last 30 minutes because I was doing stuff all day. It's like, I will allow it this time.
You also need to decompress. So like I get that too, you know.
Yeah.
Like at some point, like yeah, if you're working all day, like decompression time will allow that.
Yeah, your work. Yes, you keep me honest, which you do keep me honest, which I appreciate.
Oh yeah. I
Uh,
guess this is what happens when we've been friends for so long.
yeah, right. We've been friends for a while, and I was even saying that I don't know why it took me this. Actually, I do know why it took me this long to get you on the podcast because you were in the middle of getting your PhD and you
I
did
was
not
like, I was saying no to everything.
distraction.
I was
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
I'll be
So I
honest.
was like, I'm gonna wait until she's done with her PhD. She's got her new job. Actually, with that, talk about the transition because you did research, you
Mm-hmm.
were in academia for a while. Now you said you're in industry.
Mm,
So, do you want to talk about why industry and how that transition has been?
yeah. Um, I think if we're gonna be just point blank very honest, I think the decision to transition the industry was a financial one.
Yes.
Um,
Speak on it.
yeah, so I think I had hoped. So if you had asked me like what maybe like even just 5 years ago what I had wanted to do after my PhD, I would have answered that I 100% wanted to stay in academia, be a professor, and continue to research, be involved with like
Hmm.
students. Um, I think that sentiment in terms of being like we've continued to talk about, figure out how to mentor students, work with like research projects in some capacity has not changed for me. I think I just
Hmm.
recognized that again I didn't know enough about the system and what
Hmm.
was out there. I feel like at every step of my career, I've learned so much. So when I was getting my PhD, I didn't really recognize that you could do similar-ish things outside of academia in terms of research within like pharma, biotech, like startups. Um,
Hmm.
you could also do similar things within like working for the government, like if the NIH, different. I'm sure Natalie talked about that in her when you interviewed her. So like there's just like so many places that you can go outside of academia um, that usually pay more than academia. And I
Yes.
think at a point, I was especially thinking about this when I started my PhD. I was, how old was I? How old are we when we finish undergrad? 22?
Yeah,
No?
like
Yeah?
22. Yeah.
Okay, so I was
Yeah.
24 when I started my PhD because I did a master's.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think I was like 24 when I started my PhD. At 24, I feel like I was still like, I'm fine. Like, I wasn't like thinking about the financial aspect as much. I was like, this is fine. Thinking about like um, starting, I was like, I had so much more energy. The twinkle in the eye was still there.
Yeah.
Um, and then I think it's just like, it wasn't that like there's any less love for what I do or like the research that I do. It's just, I think I recognize that time is passing and I would just like to make more money with the skill sets that I acquired. And first, to be honest, I felt pretty guilty about that. So I feel like even now, that's why I say it like sometimes like jokingly, um, when I talk about it, um, because I think I really thought like I think this also has to be with some of like the our identities. Um, and I wanted to be a professor so that like because there's not a lot of like Latina first gen professors, right? Like we don't see that a lot. And so I wanted to sort of be that type of representation within the academic space. So I think I felt guilty sort of like feeling like I was walking away from that and the possibility of giving back. But I think at some point I decided that I was like, it was okay for me to be selfish. Or I don't know if it's
Yeah,
selfish, but like, um,
yeah,
and do what I felt like was best for me and my family.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, guilt is, yeah,
no, go
go
ahead,
ahead.
Paul. You go.
No, I'll just say guilt is a real thing, especially because what you were saying, like you kind of had your identity wrapped up in that. I think that that's a lot of pressure in it itself. But I think also understanding because being selfish gets a bad rap, which it is a bad thing to be selfish. But I don't think in this case you're being selfish because I do distinguish between being selfish and just thinking of yourself. So it's all right. Being selfish and thinking of yourself. And in this case, you're thinking of yourself, thinking of your family, and how far are the opportunities that industry brings, which it's funny because I've been in industry this whole time. I know Natalie was in academia and then she went to government. Now she's in it. We're all just, it's an industry party for the founders of NALA. But I have seen the struggles within academia. And I've decided that it is really my goal to. It's like really if you think about it's an impossible goal, which is why I know it's something that I need a team of people, which I think Nala is almost going to be like the mechanism to kind of like switch the thinking about how we interact with academia, because like we were talking about like this shared value and doing different things, like doing things for free, and then academia is always not paying as much. And I think it's because people have just accepted it, and until there comes people like us who are like, no, we're not going to accept it, this is how it should be. And I know it's an uphill battle, it's going to take some time, but I think it's, at least for me, I'm not going to give up on it, to continue to push it, because at the end of the day, like you can't just keep asking people to work for hours and hours, do all this work, get pour into students who may or may not go into grad school, and then usually after like maybe not even 10 years, if they didn't go into industry, the students are making more than the professors that they were teaching before, which is insane to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's, yeah, I'm not gonna bash academia too much. I will just say that academia has some work to do.
Yeah, I think like academia definitely has some work. It's not like I think everybody has some work. Like it's not just to say like industry is perfect, the
Oh yeah.
government is perfect. Nothing is perfect. I think it's just more so of currently, at least within the space that we're in, industry has the ability to financially pay more of what our skill sets are worth after leaving a certain like education level, right? Um,
Hmm.
Sometimes I think it's like not, how do I phrase this? I think it's like having to like the ability, me having the ability to be like selfish and leaving academia and like choosing labs, I think worked well for me. And I
Hmm.
think it's not that I wouldn't have like potentially in a different time or something like that, like continue to like stay in academia, but I think there would have been a lot more sacrifices than I would have been willing to give at the moment.
Hmm.
So
Absolutely.
yeah, and I think, but yeah, I love everybody who like stays within it, and I think like is like so much more power, you know, within that. And like I see that, and I'm just like, maybe like future generations within my family will have more of the less of like a financial stressor, you know, to like choose that, which like I think sort of
Yeah.
sucks that like that's how we have to think about it. But then yeah, just exactly like you said, like that's some of the things that like we have to work towards and that they have to change so that like it doesn't feel like a barrier to entry for people that like are sort of just like within like the first generation.
Yeah, I totally agree because when you're first generation, there's whether or not it's actively said, there's a lot of pressure on you to succeed and sometimes provide, and it's a
Mm-hmm.
lot.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I know for various people it can range, and so when you're looking at your opportunities, you're like, okay, I can go do this, or I can do this, and I think at the end of the day, something that I think I've been thinking about more and more is that just because we choose to do something now doesn't mean that we couldn't come back to it at a later point.
Yeah.
So, because I had examples of a couple professors in my that were teaching chemical engineering that actually worked in industry. They went through, got their PhDs, worked in industry for like 10 years, and then came back to academia. And not to say that I'm telling Lizeth that she needs to go back to academia in 10 years. That is not what I'm saying, or for anyone listening. More so to understand that it's okay to go for the dreams or your desires right now, and it's also okay for those dreams or desires to change later. It's not like, and I know for me, I definitely saw that in undergrad, like even trying to figure out what I wanted to do, or even in careers. It's not like you just pick one thing and you just do that for 40 years. I think maybe the Gen Xers did that. Millennials, we definitely don't do that. And Gen Z just makes their own jobs. I was telling someone else that. It's like Gen
What?
Z is the of I'm gonna just make my own job, which I highly respect that.
I've not heard of that.
Yeah,
Impressive.
yeah, like the gig economy, or I forgot what it's called, but
Yeah. I mean, good for them. I feel like Gen Z is like really like doing impressive stuff.
yeah, they are. They get a bad rap, but I think there's a lot because as we grow, we learn that what we did before, we don't have to do it again. We can do it differently. We can do it better.
Yeah.
And yes, there's some things that they are doing that's probably not the greatest. There's some things that we did or are doing are not the greatest. They're just trying to find the middle ground and find what works the best. So,
Yeah. Agreed.
yeah. So we talked about a lot of different things between mentorship and NALA, academia, jobs, and we're pretty much at time. But is there anything that we haven't talked about, like either in your story or your career, or any topic that we haven't touched on that you want to make sure the audience hears before we and wrap up?
No, I think we touched on a lot. Yeah, I think it's just continuing to highlight things that like the selfishness thing. I think that's I don't think I had realized how important that is, but like um yeah, focus on what you need and don't try at least try not to feel guilty about it. Like, you know, nobody is gonna look out for you as much as you're gonna look out for yourself, right? So you need to
Absolutely.
really handle that. Um and also like look for the mentors. I want to like really put that out there um, because
Yes.
they're so helpful, and it's really gonna be like I think some of the mentors are what can help you connect to what you are potentially looking for in your like career or just sometimes life. But yeah, I think those are like maybe my like two takeaway points. It's okay to be selfish and mentors.
No, that's really good. The only other thing I would add is don't be afraid to mentor, especially because
Mm,
like I would like this audience to be more so people who are younger professionals. And I feel like a lot of times we feel like we have to wait until like we've done something that we feel like is really big.
No.
And I was actually telling my sister about this because she graduated from college last year. And like you realize that you can mentor someone that's even a senior in college because you have gone through the process of getting a job, you're working a job. They don't understand that.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't take that much more to mentor someone. It's really just one step, two steps. Because I feel like a lot of times we're like, okay, I want the best mentor in the world, so I want Oprah to be my mentor, or I want this person to be my mentor. I'm like, yes, it's great, but that person's also so far removed from where you're at. It might be harder for them to relate and actually guide you to where you want to go.
Yeah, that's a good point. So yeah, like like having a peer mentor, like that's like really, really helpful too.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is something that is coming soon to Nala. Shameless plug. But yeah, Lizeth, it has been incredible having you on this show. You are an incredible person. Love everything that you're doing. I'm excited for this new chapter in your career and your life. We didn't even mention like where you're at, like on the East Coast now. So that I'm excited for that. How long you stay on the East Coast or transfer somewhere else, whatever it is. I'm excited for this new chapter for you and all you shared, all we got to talk about. I know it's going to add value to someone because a lot of times we don't just take the time to think about a lot of these things in mentorship or even like understanding like how the world is constantly changing. So taking the time to reflect and seek out people who can help you out and also being that person to lift as you climb, so to speak, is how you can truly be incredible. But I want to make sure people know how to find you on your socials. So whatever socials you want to share, if you can, just say them.
Wait.
Yeah, if it's just LinkedIn or any other,
Yeah, if you guys want to find me on LinkedIn, that would be great. It's just Lizeth Tamayo. And those are really all my socials.
Yeah, that's fair. I spend too much time on social, so but if you're on YouTube, you already saw that come across the screen. If you're listening on anywhere else, you can look in the show notes, click on the link. Definitely want to stay connected with Lizeth and all the great things she's doing. I hope you enjoy this conversation. Apply some of the things we talked about so you can truly be incredible.
Be sure to rate and review this podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform. We'll see you here next time. And be incredible. Incredible.